Hello and welcome everybody. Today I shall answer the question that I'm sure is burning in everyone's collective noggins. How many people are in the Pokemon Nation? Well, you don't need to ponder for long, for I took the time and counted every single person in the Pokemon Nation. Now, you may be asking, what qualifies as being part of the Pokemon Nation? What criteria did you use when counting? And just plain why? To start with, I had to figure out what regions would be counted. After some research, I came across this very well-made page that gave me these potential region options for the Pokemon Nation. I first eliminated the Ranger Union, since that is more of a foreign nation-like entity with different regulations. Next, I got rid of the anime exclusive locations since I can't really walk around and count everyone. Lastly, I got rid of the spin-off region since if I include that brings up issues with other spin-off games, and Hoenn is quite different than the other regions on this list as it's more focused on cards rather than Pokemon. And with that, we are left with the core games, Sevii Islands and Or, which is a side series rather than a spin-off. Now with that settled, I needed to pick which games to use and what criteria. After some thought, I decided to go with these series of games. These games were chosen since they are the furthest in-game time for that region, even though the Let's Go's are the more advanced versions of Kanto. And the further in timeline you go, the more accurate the census of that region. These games are the furthest in-out game timeline for that region. As for the specific versions, they were chosen because they're the version of the game I just happen to have. Now that the games are settled, time for the criteria. 1. The game is in a post-game state. NPCs move around a lot. By having the game in the post-game state, this will be the final NPC placement, for the most part. 2. NPCs are counted based on their location. This cuts down on speculation and counts who's there rather than who's supposed to be there. This can make things a little odd in some cases. This also means NPCs who vanish are not counted since they have no location in their final state. 3. Games that take place later have NPC priority. This means that any NPC that is in multiple games will have their latest appearance take priority over earlier ones. Grimsley is counted as being on Route 15 of Alola rather than the Pokemon League of Unova. Here are the priorities of the games. 4. NPCs need to be able to be interacted with in a non-trainer capacity. This means that I can run circles around the NPC and bump into them in the overworld, and they aren't just battles. So a lot of battle areas don't count when trainers on routes or Mount Battle do. 5. Randomized NPCs don't count. So NPCs like the Vanishing Walking NPCs of Galar or some randomized trainers in the White Tree Hollow are not counted. So with that out of the way, it's time for the results. The total amount of NPCs in the Pokemon Nation is 9,073. This isn't a lot on the real-world international scale, being one of the least populated countries at 905th place, only surpassing the Vatican City. Here's a breakdown of the population of the region. Unova is the most populated with 1,574 people, or around 17.3% of the population, followed closely by Sinnoh's 1,316 and Kalos's 1,298. On the other side of the spectrum, The Seve Islands are the least populated at around 220 people, or around 2.4% of the total population. That means there are around 7 Yanovans for every Seve Islander. Besides regional distribution, the only other thing I can really do for demographics is where they live, since I kinda didn't keep track of what kind of NPCs I'm counting. And I have no idea how big the regions are. There are 2 kinds of locations people are in: settlements and non-settlements. Settlements are places like towns, cities, and places listed as such on Bulbapedia. Places not listed as settlements, like routes, mountains, and so on, will be grouped together for this and called other areas. If we put settlements as urban and other areas as rural, we get an urbanization rate of around 55.8% of the population living in urban areas, which is only slightly above the world average of 55.3, which puts us as 112 on the world's urbanization scale, just behind Indonesia. The most urban region is, without a doubt, Galar, at a large 84.5% urbanization rate. If Galar was in the real world, it would be tied with Oman at 31st place. Part of this is due to the fact that Galar has the highest amount of settlements compared with those in other areas, with only 3 more other areas than settlements. Galar is followed by Kalos at 70.7, not too surprising, and Hoenn at 60.6. Kinda surprising. The least urban region with an urbanization rate of 40.4 is Alola, which doesn't surprise me given its more natural focused region. Speaking of settlements in other areas, the largest settlement in the entire Pokemon nation is, unsurprisingly, Luminos City of Kalos. This massive city, in Pokemon terms, has 448 people. That is greater than the next 3 highest settlements combined. Luminos City accounts for 5% of the entire Pokemon nation. That means 1 out of every 20 people in this hypothetical nation are from Luminos City. On the other side, the most populous other area is Mount Battle of Ore, with 118 people, or just under a 4th of Ore's entire population. This other area is the only one with a population greater than 100 people and is the 6th most populated overall location, just above Motorstoke and just under Mauville City. The next 2 highest other areas are a tie for 2nd place, with the Royal Avenue of Alola and the Pokeathlon Dome of Johto. There's no point in going for the lowest population since there's like a 20-way tie with only 1 person at that particular location. If you're curious about the amount of people at each individual location, I left a spreadsheet below with all of my info that you may feel free to look at, double check, and do what you'd like with. And with that, I shall bid you adieu and thank you for watching. What surprised you the most? Leave a comment below, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on these numbers.